As the next part of this module, we're going to start to look at frequent sequence mining, another technique for analyzing sequences or to understand or examine patterns in sequences using more a data mining approach. And before we do that, before we talk about frequent sequence mining, we have to first start with association rule mining or frequent pattern mining. There are different names that people use to describe it. And association rule mining does not care about the sequential patterns, but it's a good and important launching point for talking about frequent sequence mining. Right. So for associated rule mining, it is looking for a combination of items that frequently occur together in transactions. And the most classical example from this technique is for those grocery store or online shopping website. They're interested in identifying items that are frequently bought together. So they're trying to find the frequent item sets. By item sets, that means different sets of items that are bought together, so that you can use this information to organize the shelves or to recommend items to a customer so that you can benefit the store, or you can also help the customers find those items they want to buy together. And here's a toy example from this classical example of frequent association rule mining. And here we have 5 different transactions. Every transaction has a few different items that one customer bought from the store. And if we look at this, the list of transactions, we might be interested in what is the frequent item set from this transaction, right? Pretty quickly, we can spot that there are different items that are bought together. For example, bread, milk, and butter, they tend to appear together in those different transactions. Or we see beer and diaper. They only appear once in this list of transactions, but for that case, they occur together. So there are different kind of interesting things happening about the combination of different items. And for this analysis, it's about finding those association rules that we can use to guide some actions we can take around this grocery shopping experience. So how can we apply this idea in education? And as we have started from the beginning of this module, in education, there are all kinds of transactions happening. It can happen at very different temporal granular level. Every semester, there are things that happen, such as course enrollment. Every week, students might be interacting with each other in the class. Every minute, every second, there could be specific events that we can treat as transactions in education. So what we're looking at from this grocery shopping example could be translated to analyzing some educational transaction or educational events that we care about. So we can take, for example, a look at this course enrollment example. And here we see another toy data set, which has students considered as customers. And every semester, the students will be asked to select courses. And here you see the data frame, the table, that the first column is about the semester, the second is about student ID, and the third is about the courses they select for that particular semester. And this type of information is usually stored in the student information system. It happens once a semester, if not more frequent. And we can start to think about how can use such information to answer some questions. And another way to represent the same data could be if we merge different courses, right? And this, based on the semester and the student ID, we can combine the course ID into one cell, so that we can condense this data set by identifying the semester, the student, and the courses are select in one transaction, right? We can apply to that so that this data set becomes wider but in the same time shorter in this format, right? It's the same data set. Just because we don't care too much about the order of the courses, we just merge them together to form an item set, right? Every course is an item, and then every cell here is an item set that can have one or more items. And now with this data formatted, with this information, we can start to ask some questions. For example, I can ask questions such as which set of courses are often taken by students, taken together by students. And we can also ask questions such as which set of courses do students often take if they take CS 101 or Stats 101, right? Or which kind of courses the student take if they take Psychology 101 or Math 101, right? So there's some question that can be driven by some practical purpose that we can start to analyze the data to answer those questions. And before we dive into some kind of concrete demos, I want to first mention that this analysis has its limitations. One important limitation of association rule mining is it is more focused on finding those more frequent items or item sets. It doesn't really care too much about the long tail of a particular data set. You know, by long tail, I mean things that happens less frequently, but they can be meaningful for some users or some students or customers, even though they're not most frequent in that scenario. And so if that's important for a project, there are other type of techniques that can do better at attending to the long tail of the data. But for the association rule mining, it is really focused on the frequent item sets that exist in the data set. So to continue from here, and we can continue to think about this scenario of course enrollment and course selection. And for this process, we're using a package that is often used for frequent pattern mining or for association rule mining. Again, those are this different names, but for the same thing. And the package in R is called A-rules, and it is used really widely, and it has included a lot of different algorithms for this. It comes with different kind of utility functions that you can use to deal with transactions, to plot transactions or patterns that you can identify from data. And then there are two other packages. The first one is, as you can tell from the name, it is used to visualizations. It's used to visualize frequent item sets. And the next one, which we're not going to get into yet in this video, that is an extension from A-rules into sequential pattern mining. That's called A-rule sequences that can deal with sequential patterns, which goes beyond association to look at how different items are ordered in the sequence. So with that, let's load those packages. And we have a sample data set here. The data set is coming from a course enrollment process, a bunch of transactions happening in that process. If we read the data in, and then if we check the first 10 lines of the data, you can see something really simple. And here is the simplest possible format you can get from about course enrollment. And here, this data set only contains one column. And the column is a character. It has a type of character. And under each column, basically each cell is a transaction that contains one or more items, in this case, courses, right? The first transaction, only the student selected one course, and the second transaction, the student selected 3 different courses for that semester. So you can get a sense of how this data set looks like. And with A-rules, you can read the data into A-rules using a function called read.transactions you feed the data file in. You tell the function that the format is basket. This is a metaphor from the retail store example. The courses are put into the baskets, and then we don't want to read the header because the header is an X in this file, and then we tell the function that this separator of different items is the comma. Right, so those are the things you just need to tell the function to make sure you're reading the data accurately, because you might have different separators in different data set. It's important to tell that to the function. So after we do that, we read that into the, into this object called transaction. And here's how this object looks like. It's a sparse format with 247 transactions and has 10 different items in those transactions. And the first thing we can start to do is to, similar to what we did with TryMiner, is we can start to plot things to explore how those transactions look like. And the first thing you can do is to plot the most frequent or most popular items. And here it's called item frequency plot. If fit the transaction object, you tell the function you want the top 10 items or most popular items. In this case, items are courses. And you want to plot the vertical, the y-axis to be relative frequency, and you give the plot a name. That's called a relative item frequency plot. And then provides you this chart that shows the most popular course in this data set is chemistry, followed by maybe political science or biology, and so on, right? So with this, we can start to do all kinds of mining about the association rules. And so far, we have been successful in reading the data into R and having the transactions ready to be analyzed. In the next video, I'm going to talk about some interest measures because as we're mining different association rules, one important thing is to know which rules are of interest and could be potentially useful for us. So stay tuned for the next video.